couple big trades this week. Wizards trade CP3 to the Warriors for Jordan Poole. Just gonna go right back to Nick, man. Obviously, Warrior fan. some big news in the franchise, and then also this right here with CP3 going to your squad. And also, let me get your thoughts on Draymond Green, obviously declining the player option, $27.5 million, to eventually get an extension with Golden State. I don't see him going anywhere else. What do you think that contract looks like? So a two-parter.
Yeah, as far as the Draymond declining his extension, it didn't surprise me by any means. I kind of knew that he would kind of look to explore free agency. I know that there was talks about him going to Sacramento. I think there was a report today that said that he was going to possibly look into Memphis as well. But to me, I feel like with trading away Jordan Poole to Washington, I think that was a message from the front office to Draymond saying, you know what, we're all locked in. We want you to stay with the organization. We want to possibly run this back to see if we can possibly add a few more pieces and possibly, try to win a championship again. So that was my whole thing when it came to the Jordan Poole trade. And I'll say this about the whole trade as well with Jordan Poole is that to me it shows that he was kind of a bigger problem in the locker room within the organization than maybe we know as fans, as people who watch the game, people who talk about the game, analysts, reporters per se. Because obviously, we all know about the whole Draymond situation that happened before the season. Draymond punched him in the face, during the training camp and everything. So we get that, but it's very weird. Like you don't really see that to where an organization gives you an extension, they give you the bag, and then a year later they ship you out. And I know that Jordan Poole had a bad postseason, but I think we don't need to discredit what he was able to bring to the table last year in the 2022 playoffs because he really played a major role as far as us winning a championship, which is the reason why he got the bag was because of how well he played, him and Andrew Wiggins being great supporting cast around Steph, Draymond, and Klay Thompson. So to me, that shows that there was kind of a bigger issue that went down possibly within the organization. I don't know if those reports will ever come out. Maybe possibly, but to me, that's kind of what I've seen with that whole situation. And as far as for Chris Paul joining this team, it's mixed emotions about this because I hate the fact that we went older because even after the season ended, like right after we lost to the Lakers, I came on here and said, I think that we need to continue to build younger around Steph. I think we need to add a younger supporting cast. But CP3 is a tremendous talent. He is a high IQ player, one of the best passers in the game. So, and honestly, at this stage in his career, he's a backup point guard. I don't know if many people agree or disagree with that, but to me, at this stage in year, I think he's going into year 19. At this stage, he is a backup point guard. So, he can be able to run the second unit, or you can possibly run some lines where you have him and Steph in the backcourt. Steph is obviously one of the best players who can move without the basketball, coming off of pin downs, coming off of off-ball screens. So with Chris Paul being a great high IQ player and being a great passer, obviously he's going to find Steph in his spots. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Klay, same thing with the other guys. So I like it from that perspective. But also the thing about it is that, and this has been the downside of Chris Paul's career, is him being healthy in the playoffs. We've seen it over and over again. We saw with the Clippers the reason why they were able to elevate as title contenders. We even saw with the Rockets. A lot of people will arguably say if Chris Paul would have never went down in that series, that the Rockets would have won. I think that's debatable, but people forget Chris Paul was killing us in that Game 5. Like, it wasn't even James Harden. It was really Chris Paul killing us in that Game 5. And then I think at the end of that game, he went down with a hamstring injury. Yep. Then he went down for the rest of the series. So you can arguably say that injuries have costed Chris Paul about possibly 1 or 2 championships per se. So, I think that is probably the biggest thing as far as for Chris Paul is, can he be healthy coming around playoff time? But overall, I don't really view this as like a bad trade. Of course, I was upset with it because it was like, okay, why are we trading Jordan Poole for Chris Paul? I mean, I don't really think that's a fair trade, but if Chris Paul can just come in, be a great role player, be a great backup point guard, and you could possibly add a few young talents to surround him in that second unit, I think it could possibly be fine. So I'm going to give this a chance. I'm not going to jump off the ship and say, oh man, this is not going to work. We're going to see how this goes through part of the season, and we'll give our analyzation after that.
As far as for me, if you don't mind me going next, I'm kind of both ways. And first of all, I want to say this, Nick. I remember mid-season we were talking about just Chris Paul somehow maybe being on this team, and you're like, there is no way you would never want him. But I respect and I'm glad the way that you kind of approach it. Hey, we'll see how it goes. And I'm not like coming at you or anything like that, because in a weird way, this doesn't make sense. But at the same time, it kind of makes good sense. And that's I know I'm backwards on that, because you said it best. Jordan Poole was younger, and the player that was coming on, like they gave him a bag last year, I think it was, the extension, and then he got knocked out, and then he never stumbled back from it, never came out of concussion protocol, and he played bad all year. Well, I won't say all year, but like he made mental errors in crucial moments, and Chris Paul don't do that. So I feel like it's a huge picture. Chris Paul for Poole is not really what this deal really is. Poole for Paul to also keep Draymond Green is basically this in a nutshell, like you said or alluded to earlier. But also, I like it for the part that I do think Chris Paul is going to be the second string. Do I think he's second string? No. I think he can still be a first string, quarterback, point guard for any team. But on this team, I think to keep his longevity for the whole season, because that's been a problem, is injury, this is best case scenario for him. Hey, Chris Paul, be our second string leader. Don't worry so much about playing every game, but get in with the lineup, get used to them, and we can run basically a straight long period first string. And what I mean by that is your main guards is going to be Clay, who apparently you're saying is completely healthy and he's able to be this, because Jordan Poole was the backup to Klay Thompson not being able to be back to who he was before. So you got Clay and Steph running your 1 and 2. You got Chris Paul, who can come in to relieve either one of those guys, and Clay or Steph can run that too, and let Chris Paul come in and be that one, which is the way the Golden State runs it, is kind of positionless anyways. So I think it can work well with this team. Now, age, accountability, health issues, that all comes into question with Chris Paul, but I think they just don't use him that much through the season, because this is a veteran team where they don't have to have that number one seed where they have to have home court advantage. Granted, they only won 9 away games this year during the regular season. But I'm happy with this trade. I think this is a good fit for Chris Paul. There's not much asked upon him with this team. Steph Curry is the leader. Klay Thompson's the shooter. I mean, everyone still has their role. Draymond Green is now set to sign back with them, still be their psycho leader, if you will, the mentality leader. Chris Paul just got to come in and be a veteran leader and give a few buckets here, set some people up, get them in the game, and be the facilitator. And he's good. So I kind of like the trade. And I think it's good for Jordan Poole. Let's talk at least for the other side on this. We kind of just stayed on the Chris Paul and Warriors, but Jordan Poole is a player who is on the upcoming. Now, last year was a fluke. I'm going to say we hope it's a fluke on how he played, because he didn't play up to his par what he did prior year of this. So a fresh atmosphere, new change away from knockout Draymond. Maybe he can become his superstar in Washington, because they're already trading everyone else, which we'll get into more of those, where he can develop. And then who knows what Washington will probably be doing is, hey, come here, prove yourself. And when it comes trade deadline, you'll probably be out anyways, looking for another team where we can get more picks and get you a better spot for a ring anyways.